Welcome to the College Application Workshops presented by the University of Notre Dame Undergraduate Admissions Counseling staff and team. We're thrilled to have you here, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. If you have any questions during the presentation, we encourage you to ask those questions in the chat. We'll answer your questions during the Q&A portion of the session. Thanks for being here. We'll get started in just a few moments.
Hello, welcome to the College Application Workshop on Understanding the College Essay. We're thrilled to be here with you today, talking all about the essay section and how you can tackle not only your personal statement, but also the supplemental questions as well. As a quick introduction, my name is Maria Finan. I'm a Senior Assistant Director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. I'm also a double domer, so I not only received my bachelor's degree at Notre Dame, but my master's degree as well. I'm super excited to be here today with my colleague. I studied English at Notre Dame, so essays are something I'm really passionate about. But before we go any further, I'll let Zach kind of introduce himself and his background to you as well.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Zach Klonzinski. I'm also a Senior Assistant Director here in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. I'm also a graduate of Notre Dame. I was a history major. I also minored in journalism and was an editor at the student newspaper. So like Maria, we've read, edited, and written a lot. And so this is a passion project of ours. We've been able to do it for a number of summers now, and it's something that we look forward to every summer. So thanks so much for being here today. We'll go ahead and just outline the agenda for you all briefly, just to give you an idea of what we're going to do. We've obviously done our introductions, but Maria's going to walk us through a little bit of essay prompt analysis, and then I'll come back in and share some tips for brainstorming, give you some writing tips, some editing advice, we'll give you some final reminders, and then we'll transition into Q&A. So as you heard in the video, please do throw some questions in the chat, and we will be able to get to those, hopefully, some of them in this session. Maria, take it away.
Wonderful. So we have put together a handout for you. So if you are somebody who likes writing things down, you obviously can take notes as we go over this, but we've put together a handout that kind of talks through just how do you tackle something like your personal statement. So as you are kind of thinking about what prompt you're going to respond to, the very first thing you should do is read all of the prompts. I often find that it's easiest to start by eliminating prompts that don't seem interesting to you or don't seem applicable. The ultimate goal is that you're going to select one prompt that you'll be focusing on. And once you've kind of made that selection, it's also important that you're annotating for key words and phrases. That'll be useful because it'll help you structure your own response. And then you can start by rephrasing the prompt in your own words so that you know what it is you're going to be talking about. We'll go through a little bit of an example for you just to kind of give you a sense what this looks like actually in action. So if you look at the prompts that you have to select, there's a wide variety of them. Some years, the Common App, Apply Coalition on Score, QuestBridge may change these, but oftentimes they will stay the same. For the sake of this exercise, I've already gone through, I've read all of the different prompts that exist, and I have actually narrowed it down to kind of two potential prompts. For this purpose, the purposes of today, we'll be focusing on Common App prompts, but do know that Notre Dame does accept multiple different types of applications. We don't have a preference. This is just to make it a little easier to focus on. So the two prompts that kind of jumped out to me were question 2, which says the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter could be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you? And what did you learn from the experience? This to me seems like a potentially good question. I have a couple of different kind of life experiences that I feel like I could write about that would really kind of reveal who I am and things that are important to me. So I like this idea. The other one that I was drawn to was describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So analyzing these two both seem somewhat promising, but obviously you're going to have to ultimately pick one of them. And so kind of during my brainstorming process, I would think about what do I have the best stories to tell? And I'm actually going to eliminate one of them until I'm only left with one more that I would respond to. And so the one that I actually think will be the best fit for me is that kind of question 6. I'll tell you, I mentioned I was an English major, so I'm really, really passionate about reading. And that's something that I think would tell you a lot about my personality, a lot about who I am, and give me a great opportunity. So that might be a way that I would think about kind of my topic selection. And from there, once you've selected a prompt, you do need to annotate it. And maybe your English teachers have said this to you before, but I'm kind of looking for keywords to figure out how I would want to structure a response. So describing a topic, idea, or concept, I'm going to have to pick one of those. The word engaging also seems really important here. It's something that I'm excited about. I need to think about why it captivates me. I also want to talk about what or who I turn to when I want to learn more. So those are just some kind of important ideas in terms of keywords. And then this to me is just kind of a long prompt. And so I would want to rephrase it into a question that I feel like I could actually respond to in an essay. And so I would just simplify this to, what are you passionate about? And that is essentially the question or the topic that I would write my Common App or personal statement on, regardless of the application I'm filling out. So that's just a little bit of an example for how you could do this. Obviously, this process probably will take you longer. You'll spend more time on the reading. You might have 3 or 4 you're drawn to before you narrow it down. But I really would encourage you to kind of go through all of these different steps and not to skip this last one of rephrasing the prompt, because I think it's really important. If you make it to this point, you should pause and celebrate. You are kind of halfway through the process of responding to your personal statement prompt on the application. So definitely throughout this process, I think there are many things to celebrate, but figuring out what question you'll respond to in your personal statement is a big one. So be sure to celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the little pieces of this, right? The fun part about applications and application essays is that this is how we get to know you. This is how you get to introduce yourself to colleges, right? So it should be a little bit fun. You should be introducing yourself. And then I'll give you some ideas about how we can actually kind of put this into practice, right? So we've got our prompt. We're really starting to think about, okay, how do I want to respond to this prompt? The number one thing that you're going to start brainstorming, right? And just to give you some tips that I do when I brainstorm, these might not work for everyone. That's okay. You might have your own process. But this is kind of how I like to really do my brainstorming, right? I like to use pen and paper. I'll do a notebook. I like the flexibility of being able to kind of write wherever I want on the page, whatever angle I want, anything like that. I will focus on like short statements, short phrases, keywords. I'm going to avoid sentences. I don't want to slow my brain down when I'm brainstorming. I just want to get all these topics out there and potential ideas. Enough that I'm going to be able to remember what I was thinking, but not so much that I'm getting bogged down in trying to do grammatical sentences, anything like that. Think about key life events, life activities, lived experiences are always really important in this because those are yours, right? We're looking to get to know you and what's important to you. And so be thinking of your own individual life experiences, your own individual passions. We're really just trying to get to know you through this process. So keep your focus there. Write out some adjectives that describe you. You may also ask your friends or family to contribute some of these adjectives because they might come up with some adjectives that you wouldn't have thought of. But you're really proud of that they saw that in you, right? And so that's a great way to go about that too. And then be thinking throughout all of this, what would make a good story, right? We want to, it could be a good story. It could be a good kind of entryway into an essay. Get something that's kind of fun, that's really you, that you're really excited about, and see how those pieces are coming together. So we don't have time to do this today, but on the form that we shared out, we do have a suggested activity that you just set a timer for 5 minutes and don't let your pen or pencil stop moving. Just keep writing, see what comes at the end of it. You can always do it again. You can always do a different activity, but that's just a suggested activity that we have. When you're doing some writing tips, just as you actually start to write that essay, a couple things that will help you to make this a little bit better. Write in a document, not your application. Your application does not save your work. And so if, for example, you lose Wi-Fi, or if, for example, you've been in the application so long that it times out and you have to log in again, you will lose everything that you've written. Do not write in your application. Write in a separate document. I know, Maria, you kind of have a good story of this experience that you can share with our viewers?
Yes. So I was working on my thesis senior year at Notre Dame, and my computer crashed at one point, and I lost about 15 to 20 pages of my undergraduate thesis that was unrecoverable. We don't want you to have that experience. So please make sure you're saving frequently or working in some kind of cloud-based service. Obviously, there are certain stresses in this process that are unavoidable, but that is definitely one that you can avoid. And I have certainly learned my lesson, and I'm always good about working in platforms that automatically save my work now.
Yeah, so automatically save your work. Make sure you're doing that. Write first, edit second. The first draft of your essay does not need to be polished, right? You're not looking at that point for grammar or for spelling or anything like that even. You're just looking to get things onto paper, because it's always easier to get something on paper and then take it away or edit it or reshape it than it is when it's still in your head and not on the page yet, right? And so always do that. My first draft of my thesis when I was an undergrad at Notre Dame was a bulleted list. It was like bulleted phrases kind of arranged into a correct order, because then I could focus on actually putting them into sentences. I had the content in the order I wanted, in the flow I wanted, and that works for me. Might terrify you, but that works for me, and I really enjoyed kind of that process. Too much is always better than too little. It is much easier to cut than it is to add on, right? It might feel, if you're adding on, you might feel like you're kind of stretching, that you're kind of adding in fluff. You're not really adding anything to your essay. And at the same time, if you find yourself coming up short and you just can't quite fill, I think it's about 600 or 650 words for most of these personal statements, maybe go back to the prompts and either re-brainstorm, or even maybe find out that maybe that prompt isn't the one that you want. You can always go back in the process and start over. We do want too much, not too little. Do you need a title? Sure, if you want one. If you don't want one, don't have one. It really doesn't matter to us. This is not like an essay that you're writing in high school where you need a nice little title and like different formatting and anything like that. You don't need that at all. If you feel it helps your essay and you want to have one, sure. If you feel that it's just extraneous and you're using words up there for no reason, great. That's also a perfectly great way to feel, and something that is a very personal choice. We're not going to care on our end. Do break it into multiple paragraphs. It is much easier to read than one single block of text. Coming as a journalism student, we were always encouraged to have paragraphs that were 2 or 3 sentences. Certainly they can be a little bit longer than that in your college essay, and they'll be a little bit longer than that in academic writing. But it is much easier on the reader and on you as a student to really be able to organize those. It's better for readability. Do break it into paragraphs. Also, do really think about the prompts, especially when you start getting into supplemental essays, which we don't focus on a lot in this presentation. But do read the prompts and don't just reuse essays that are from another prompt that's similar, but from another school, right? All of us, we've spent a lot of time on our prompts this year. It's going to be a little bit different than in previous years. So you'll be able to see that on August 1st when they go live. But we put a lot of thought into this. We want to hear your story. We want to hear your answers to these specific questions. And then finally, don't be afraid to start from scratch. Throw whatever you had in the trash, do whatever you want. It's just not working, don't force it. You want to make sure you give yourself time for this process. When we get into editing, we do want to make sure that you're having someone who's a trusted reader and someone who is good at editing, right? Your friends could be good, but if they're not, someone who you also really admire how they write or how they provide feedback, find someone who's going to be able to give you that constructive feedback and really help you with your essay. Don't be afraid to find someone who maybe isn't your first, your closest friend or your first choice in that way, but find someone who's going to be really good at helping you edit with that. Lay off the thesaurus. You certainly do not need, there are essays that sometimes Maria will read, and they'll use a word that, Maria as the English major and the English master's student will not know. Right. And so lay it off. That's not what we're looking for. We're not looking that you can make yourself sound really good. We're just looking to get to know you. But worry about content first, and then again, kind of check on spelling, grammar, syntax last. If you miss a comma or two, or there's like a small grammar mistake in your essay, we really don't care. We're not going to be going through with that kind of fine-tooth comb. We're really trying to get to know you as a person, and that's what we want to focus on these essays. Yes, you should edit it. Yes, it should be clean. But don't stress if you miss something. That's not the purpose of these essays, right? Do sleep on it. Give yourself time to sleep and come back to that essay, to reread it a day, 2 days later, to really make sure that you feel like you're in a good space and that you really feel good about that essay. You do not want to rush these the night of, so give yourself some time to really sit with these essays and feel good about what you're submitting to colleges, because this is what you're presenting to them, right? This is how you're introducing yourself. You want to feel good about that. Don't rush those essays. And the last thing, be you. Be authentic. That's what we want to know. We want to get to know you. And I give you total permission to be yourself in these essays. So with that, we are going to eventually get to some more questions. So we'll actually, if you do have further questions that we don't get to today, there's 2 different resources that we can provide you to help get those questions answered. One is our admissions@nd.edu email. It will help go to kind of admissions counselors. We can share more insights, things like that. We also have a 2-part blog series. You can't actually click on the link in this presentation today, but it is linked on the worksheet that we shared at the very beginning. So it is a 2-part blog series that includes a lot of commonly asked questions that we've spent a little bit more time looking over. So do take a look at that if you would like another resource. But with that, we've got some final reminders, and then we'll kind of move into the second part of our presentation.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think, Zach covered some kind of important concepts, but again, just some quick reminders for you. You do want to make sure you're reading everything before you jump in. I can tell there's some nervousness about, should you already be working on your essays? Should you have already done them? You've got time. A lot of things are released August 1st when it comes to just kind of essays and prompts and things like that. And that would be true for the Notre Dame ones. But before you start writing, again, make sure you're reading. Make sure you understand, are we asking you to respond to 2 out of 3 questions? Are you being asked to respond to 1 of something? Is it optional? Is it required? All of that attention to detail is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Any topic can be a great topic if done well, and any topic can be a bad topic if done poorly. And I think the biggest trap that students will fall into in this vein is that they'll write an essay that's not about them. Every year we'll read a lot of essays about a student's dog or a student's grandmother. And while grandma might be super cool, and I love dogs too, like, they're not applying to Notre Dame, right? You are applying to the University of Notre Dame. So if you want to share something about grandma and that's the way that you want to start introducing yourself and then kind of transition from there, that can be a great way to do that essay. But again, the essay is about you. And so any topic can be good if it helps us get to know you, and any topic can be bad if it can be something that just maybe is more of a missed opportunity in that vein.
Yeah, and remember, this is about telling your story. We don't require interviews. We don't even offer them. So this is your opportunity to infuse your voice into your application. We want to get to know you, and you should be writing in your own voice. So that is important. And I see some of you asking about, like, should I include jokes? Should I be funny? If you are funny, then maybe it makes sense to be funny in your essays. But if that's not who you are, we're not expecting that. We've read essays on all different topics and all different tones. And as long as we get to know you, that's definitely something that is really all we're looking for. So much like you want to find a university that you feel like aligns with your values and what you're looking for, we want to get to know the real you. So be authentic, use your voice. Please don't make me pull out the thesaurus or the dictionary to figure out kind of what word you're using.
Yeah, for sure. As Maria will obviously remind you, save your document often. Just gonna throw that out there again because you don't want to lose all of your hard work. Do also check for formatting before submitting. When you copy and paste from like a Word document or a Google document or some other form, you may accidentally find out that the formatting has changed in the actual Common App website or the Apply Coalition by Score or the QuestBridge application. So do a quick little run through once you have pasted that essay in to make sure nothing's gone wonky on you in that way.
And I think another important thing is take a deep breath, right? This is a process that can be stressful, but we also hope that there are moments that it feels fun, that it feels like an opportunity to convey who you are. Remember, your worth is not determined by your college acceptances. We hope that many of you will choose to apply to Notre Dame. We hope that some of you will come to Notre Dame. But at the end of the day, you all are incredibly hardworking, incredibly bright students. And we really hope that you can kind of find some joy in the process as you go through it. We appreciate how enthusiastic you all are. You have some great questions. So Zach, if you're all right with it, I think ready to kind of transition to questions. I've actually been pulling a couple that I think would be great to start off with.
Absolutely. What'd you find?
Yeah. So a couple just kind of general logistical questions, which is where they find the essay prompts and kind of when we're releasing them.
Yeah, so essay prompts will be released on August 1st. We're pretty excited about the ones we have this year. As I alluded to, it is a bit of a different format than what Notre Dame has done in the past. So we're pretty excited about that. Just kind of changing up, giving you some more options to look at. So those will go live on August 1st. You can find them on our website. You'll also be able to find them on the supplement to whatever application you're using, whether that's the Common App or the Applying Coalition on SCORE, or eventually through the QuestBridge process as well. But they will go live on our website. There'll probably be a blog post and like a news post checking that out. So just admissions.nd.edu. Go ahead and take a look there. We're pretty excited for them. And to go back to kind of a concern that had been a little bit earlier, no, you're not behind. We're talking about this in present tense and as if people are doing it right now, because this is being recorded. It will be available throughout the year. So if you do need to come back and you want to kind of rewatch anything that we said, because you're actually writing your essay in September or October and you just kind of want a refresher about how we talked about today, it will be there and available to you. So.
Yeah. So we got a great question from Luke that I think is a good one kind of philosophically to start us off with. And he asked, should supplemental essays be tailored to the mission and values of each college? Does this help significantly? And I think I love this question because I think it really aligns nicely with kind of Notre Dame being a mission aligned university. And so we talk about at Notre Dame, being a force for good, using your education to help others. And I think your supplemental essays for all of your universities are an opportunity to really reflect on what is unique about that specific institution. What do they value? What is their education philosophy? And how does that match your own values and what you're looking for? So I would say definitely take the time to understand the universities you're applying to. Going and attending things like information sessions, whether that's on campus or virtually, reading emails that we send you, watching takeovers by current students on social media. All of that will hopefully give you some insight into what a university is all about. And I would say you definitely want to make sure that you are tailoring your supplemental responses to the specific university. We can definitely tell when we get a more generic response. And I think that can be a missed opportunity for students to really express what they value and what they're looking for in their college experience. So take some time, hone in on your college list to make sure that you really understand the universities you're applying to, that you're applying to places that you're excited about and can see yourself, and then kind of let that time be demonstrated in your responses to those supplemental essays.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. You want to make sure that you're doing this thought. You're really thinking about this. This is an intentional process, or at least it should be. And the most impactful ones, it'll be very intentional to them. So another question I see from Francis is, how do you or should you know which question provides the biggest impact to you admissions readers? And so really, Francis, there is none. There is not one that is more impactful than another, because we think that all of these are important and everyone has different lived experiences. And we want to get to know what yours are, what's important to you, what you're passionate about. And so the most impactful question as a reader for, if I was reading your application versus reading Maria's application, the most impactful question is probably going to be different between the two of you because they are your lived experiences. I think a lot of students will focus on this idea of, what do colleges want us to say? And I want to challenge all of you to reframe that a little bit and say, what do I want to introduce myself to colleges with? How do I want to introduce myself to schools? What am I most proud of? What's most important to me? Think of it that way. Don't think about it, what do colleges want us to say? But think about it more of, how do I want to introduce myself to a college? Because at the end of the day, I don't know you. And at the end of the day, the whole idea of this process is that by the end of reading your application, I do know you a little bit better, especially for those students who are really intentional about this and allow us to kind of get to know them a little bit more throughout the process. That's what the essays are really important for. Extracurriculars, we'll learn all about your activities or kind of other things in your life, community, faith, service, family responsibilities. We'll see your grades, we'll see your transcripts, but essays are where we actually get to hear from you in your own voice. And so use that opportunity to really be proud of yourself and to help introduce yourself to whoever's reading that essay. Don't think of it as, what do colleges want me to hear or want me to say?
Yeah, I think that's a great one. And I see some questions about, can you reuse topics or things that you use for other schools? Obviously, if a topic's important enough for you to write about it for one school, it may be important enough for you to write about it all of your schools. But the real caution is just, are you writing what the prompt is asking? Every so often, we definitely get supplemental essay responses in particular that's clear are not responding to the prompt that we have asked. And so it may feel like sometimes universities are asking you similar things, but really pay attention and reflect on, what is the question I'm being asked? Certain topics, of course, are incredibly important to who you are as a person. And so it may make sense to write about it multiple times, obviously, since we're not all seeing the same things. But do make sure you always go back and read the prompt to make sure that you've kind of answered the question that's being asked.
Yeah, and I would add on to this, maybe make sure that, on your common application essay or your apply coalition by score personal statement or on QuestBridge, they'll all have kind of this one general essay that you'll be able to share with all of the schools that you're applying to. That's kind of the beauty of this. And we understand that part of the reason that this application works so well for a lot of students, or these applications work so well for a lot of students, is because you can use that same personal statement to apply to every school that you're applying to. And so we give you full permission. And I, in fact, encourage students to write a personal statement that is best for them and not necessarily focus on drafting your personal statement to a specific institution. Because if that institution wants to get to know you better, they're going to provide you that opportunity in the supplemental essays. Right. So I give you permission to write your best personal statement, to introduce yourself to whatever school is reading your application. If you do decide to kind of customize or tweak the main statement, your personal statement, to whatever school you're applying to, please do remember to go back and kind of update it for the next school that you're applying to. Because every year we will read essays where in the personal statement, someone will say, I really want to go to insert university that's not Notre Dame. Right. And that's good. We understand that you're applying to a lot of schools, but that is a missed opportunity right at the start of your essay. Oftentimes that application readers are going to see, right? So we want you to make sure, I encourage you to put forward your best personal statement and then get a little bit more school specific on supplemental essays and really think about those in relation to the school that you're applying for. So, Maria, there is a couple of questions in the chat that I've seen about kind of the free prompt on the Common App. And the one that kind of creates your own. And is that better or worse than any of the others?
So I think this is one of those common misconceptions that students have, that we have favorite prompts, that we have preferred prompts, that some questions are better than others, whether that's a personal statement or a supplemental one. We don't have preferences. I think that the best prompt for you to choose is the one you can write the best response to. And that might seem like a cop-out. You might be like, but what prompt should I write on? But the reason I say that is because you're all unique. You all have different lived experiences. You all have different backgrounds, perspectives, passions, values. And again, we're really trying to get to know you. So if you feel like the Common App prompts that have been written or the prompts on another application have been written aren't the best fit for you, then maybe choosing your own makes sense. I'm someone who personally kind of needs structure for what I'm responding to. I find that helpful. But this is really about you. This is your opportunity to tell your story in your own words. So that's kind of my advice. If you are somebody who's like, I don't know what I write about for the free prompt, then maybe that's not the best one for you to attempt to tackle. So make sure you're going through that process we outlined. The brainstorming step honestly takes a long time. For the purposes of demonstrating this, it didn't, but in real life, thinking about what to write about is really important. And I find that talking to the people who are closest to you, whether it's your best friend, whether it's a parent, a guardian, a trusted mentor, a teacher, those are some of the people who may really help you figure out kind of what your essay should be on. And I do think sometimes students have this misconception that they need to pick a topic that shows, they've cured cancer, or they've developed the world's top app, or that they've overcome something. Those aren't our favorite essays. Those aren't the ones that resonate with us. We're not going to tell you our favorite essays. I know that's always a question. But my favorite essays are just the ones that I walk away and I feel like I really know who a student is. And they're not necessarily on grand topics. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful.
I'll share my favorite essay. One of my favorite essays I've ever read in this job was about a teddy bear. And that's all I can really share, because if I start getting more into that, I start being able to potentially identify the student, which is a violation of federal law. So I can't do that. But my favorite essay was about a teddy bear, right? You can write a great essay about resilience and overcoming something, or about family situations, or about a sports injury or anything like that. But you don't have to write in that vein. It doesn't have to be that grandiose of a topic to really introduce yourself to us and help us get to know what your values are, what's important to you, how you'll be a contributing member of a vibrant, thriving college community, both here at Notre Dame and at other schools across the country, right? So I think that's something to also keep in mind as you're doing this. I have seen a couple questions, or just a number of things that are asking about, can I do this or can I do that? And the answer is, yeah, go ahead and give it a try. I give you permission right now to try whatever you want on your college application essay. Now, I don't give you permission to just submit whatever you want, because you should talk to someone, a trusted editor who's saying, hey, what are you trying to do with this essay? Is this working? A parent or a counselor or a fellow peer who's a really good editor. I would go to Maria as one of my editors to be like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. What do you think? Right? And so I give you permission to try. You can be funny. You can be serious. You can do a different format however you want. Absolutely, you can try that. Now, whether it works or not for you is a different situation, and that's why we want to have critical feedback. And if it does, great, submit it as your college essay. But I definitely give you permission to try something if you want to try it, because if you want to try it, that kind of indicates to me that there's something there for you, and there's something of interest to you that you want to explore. And trying it, you'll never know if it'll work if you don't.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to the fact that there's not one right way to do this. So it does not need to be a 5-paragraph essay. It does not need to be written in MLA format. And actually, it should be more personal and informal than that. You do want to edit. Again, that's an important part of the process. And I think, Zach gave some editing tips that are great. The first goal is just to get words on paper. You can clean them up, you can hone them, you can clean up the narrative, and that's true for your supplemental essays too. I know I can see there's some students who maybe kind of have my English major heart who are like, only 200 words. How can I respond in 200 words? I'm going to tell you that when I applied to college, when I applied to grad school, when I applied to my doctoral program, all of my initial drafts were way longer than the word counts that were allotted. And so I try not to worry about the word count when I'm writing, and I worry about that in the editing stages. So if you are somebody who's feeling kind of anxious about that, or any of those formatting pieces, again, that's the final step. That's the polishing stage. We are at the end of July right now. The fact that you will ready to dive into this makes me so excited. Zach and I always have advice about not procrastinating. October 31st is not the time to be writing your essays if you're applying for our restrictive early action deadline on November 1. But again, know that a lot of the things can be cleaned up. The first goal is just to pick a good prompt. I remember kind of in my own college application process, I had entire supplemental responses written that I ultimately didn't like. And I decided they weren't the best question for me to answer. And so I went back and I chose another one, and I was able to write a better response. Try not to get too frustrated with the process. Make sure you're walking away from things. You don't need to delete things. So that's something I would caution you is don't delete things just because you feel like it's not good right now. Come back to it with fresh eyes. You might be able to even pull out a line or two later on that could be helpful. So any time that you spend in the process, whether it's brainstorming, drafting, writing, all of that is time well spent, and your editing stage is really where you can hone it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing some more questions in here. And sorry, they keep jumping around as people add new ones. So I apologize. Sometimes I'll lose questions here. But I've seen a couple that are kind of thinking about, an experience or something that's important to you, but is not necessarily related to a major or what you want to study in college. And that's totally fine. We have 500 student clubs and organizations at Notre Dame. You're going to be doing lots of things outside of your majors. You might be picking up a double major in something that you had never thought you would be doing. But it's totally fine. We want to get to know you, your lived experiences, things you'll be bringing to campus, things that's really important to you. And no, it does not have to align with your major. And then similarly, I think I saw a question kind of right next to that about kind of excessive narrative and kind of reading an essay more as a story or a book than necessarily an essay. And like I said, I can give you permission to try right now. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the goal of your college application essay is to help introduce yourself to you. We're not sitting here judging a student's writing ability, right? Because these are 650 words. You're all in high school. If you've been doing great writings in high school and you're part of writing clubs or you're receiving awards for your writing, like great, that could be other great pieces to add to your application. But when we're looking at these essays, we're not sitting here with a rubric saying, wow, they use great grammar. They get a 5 or something like that. That's not what we're doing with these essays. We're sitting here trying to get to know you. And if you feel that a high fantasy story or a high fantasy approach is the way you want to do it, great. If you want to feel as a straight academic essay is the way you want to do it, great. If you want to try and tell a really funny story and introduce yourself that way, also great. However you want to do that, that's the point of these essays. It is not to show us, for us to grade your writing skills. If you're a great writer and you want to, show that off, like absolutely, I think it will come through naturally. But the idea and the whole kind of point of this process is to help us get to know you and always keep that at the center.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of questions kind of about AI and ChatGPT, and I think that is a great topic just to discuss because it's a new reality for you all as you're applying to college. And I think the big thing that we would want to emphasize to you is that we're expecting you to rely on your own thinking, your own experiences, your writing skills, and all of these different things to articulate what's important to you. I don't think that a computer can necessarily do that. So really just pushing you, again, this is an opportunity to share your personal experiences, to share what you hope to do with your life, the things that you value, who you are as a person. And so I would really encourage you to, again, go through these processes, do your own brainstorming. When you are submitting your application, you want to make sure that this is your best work, that you thought about, what you value. And again, I think goes back to our really great question that we had submitted just earlier by Luke about like an opportunity to tailor your essays to the mission and values of each college. And so that would kind of be my advice there. And I don't know, Zach, if you have anything else you
authenticity is the most important piece of this. Now, are there ways that you can use technology to help you brainstorm or to help you with things? Does Microsoft Word and Microsoft and Google Docs have grammar editing that's already kind of automated tools anyway? Yes, that is there. But I think at the end of the day, authenticity comes from you. And I think if you wanted to let your college essays and the way that you're introducing yourself to colleges be written by an algorithm, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that personally. Because I'm a person, right? I am this unique individual full of lived experiences, full of passions and qualities that I hope others admire in me, or that values that I have are really important to me. And I don't think an algorithm can get there. Now, are there ways to help you with brainstorming and things like that? Yeah, and we want to make sure that you're using all the tools at your disposal. But the best essays are going to come from you because no one else could write them. Even, especially not an algorithm that is even based on a couple years old data. Like the last time they actually pulled data into ChatGPT was a couple years ago into the database, right? And so I think authenticity comes from you. And I don't think there's any way to replace that in your essay itself.
Yeah. And to remind you, we're real people. We are some of the real people on this team who read applications. So we want to get to know you, not someone else's version of you or a computer's version of you. I see some more questions about any things that students should, shy away from, or anything that automatically makes us reject students. So maybe in a reassuring way, the essays are a piece of your application, and we are looking comprehensively at everything you submit. It's not just like an essay is kind of the make or break for whether or not a student gets admitted. Again, it's a great opportunity to share your own voice, but it's not like the essay is kind of where we decide this student's getting in, this one's not getting in. So just know that the review process is looking at all of the pieces of your application, those academic pieces, your activities, letters of recommendation. Essays are part of the puzzle. They're an important part of the puzzle, again, because it's your opportunity to share your voice. But it's not like there are things you absolutely cannot do or should not do. There are no kind of automatic things that we say, oh yes, we have to admit this student just based on an essay, or we can't admit the student.
Yeah, I think essays can sometimes just be a missed opportunity, right? Very few essays have I ever read where something was revealed or anything kind of important happened where I was immediately like, I have maybe concerns about admitting this student. Most of the time, it's students take better advantage of the opportunity to introduce themselves, to help us get to know them than other students do, right? I'll get to a lot of essays where I get to the end of it, and sometimes we'll even ask ourselves, like, I'm not really sure why this student applied to Notre Dame, especially after finish reading their supplemental essays, right? And so that's more of a missed opportunity than than helping you stand out and taking advantage of these opportunities that are essays, right? We really want to make sure that as we're going through this process, again, that we're getting to know the authentic you. And I think this is your opportunity to really seize that opportunity to think about, how do I want to introduce myself to a college, right? I keep coming back to this idea because that is the central point of these essays.
Yeah. All right, so we probably have time for maybe one or two more questions. You all have had some really great questions, and so thank you all for just continuing to add more in the chat. You're sending them obviously faster than we can write them. Zach, any that you're like, we must answer before we leave?
Every time I think I find one, it gets moved when the new chat comes in, so I apologize, everyone. Maria, do you have any kind of tips? And I think there's been a couple that have touched on this idea of maybe other things to maybe avoid in an essay, or things that kind of lead to a student who might not make the most of an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things you want to do is, although you have kind of limits on your essays, I also do think you want to take advantage of the allotted word count you have. Every so often, like you said, some of those missed opportunities are if a student only writes a short 1-paragraph essay for their personal statement. That to me feels like a missed opportunity to tell us more about a student. Again, we're really looking to get to know you. I think the more you can be focused about kind of a specific maybe moment in time, those essays probably tend to be a bit stronger. Obviously, starting with the kind of moment you're born and trying to tell us your entire life story and over the course of 17 years might be hard to do in roughly 650 words. But if you pick a specific moment or a specific story that kind of gives us insight, again, into who you are, what you value, that I think is the most helpful. So also, again, try to hone in on something, try to pick a specific story or a particular moment to kind of talk about.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I want to leave you on is, I've seen a couple questions in here recently about, is this perspective similar to a lot of other schools? Is this how other schools read essays? And obviously we can't speak for them, but I will say that almost everyone I talk to, their favorite part of being an application reader is reading the essay. It is getting to know all the incredibly talented, vibrant, wonderful human beings who are applying to our schools. And I think that's something that is the most humbling part of this process. And that's something that I think is pretty universal across colleges. How exactly they go about it, I really can't say. But again, I think that's getting back to the idea of, you're thinking about, what does the school want me to say? I really want to challenge all of you, if you leave with nothing else today, this is about you and how you want to introduce yourself to schools. And I think if that is the way that you approach your essays, the authentic you, the important you, that will come out. My final tip is, if you ever read, if you are thinking about this essay and you want a concrete way to think about it, if you printed out your essays as a collection or individually at a printer at your high school, and your name wasn't on it, but one of your friends or a teacher or someone who knows you picked up that essay and went, oh, I bet this is so-and-so's essay. I bet this is Maria's essay, right? That's a great essay. I don't need to know anything else about the topic. I don't need to know anything else about that, because that person was able to, without your name, identify that I bet this was so-and-so's essay. That is a great college essay. So Maria, I know we're getting right to the wire here.
Thank you so much for being here with us. As Zach mentioned, we do have 2 blog posts on our website with some other commonly asked questions, also available kind of via email. So thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it. Best of luck to all of you as you work on your college applications and your essays.